all change at Tronsmart. I didn't ask for the Halo 200, and they sent it to me anyway. Other people are asking for it. Well, and the Tronsmart Bang Max, and they've been told, no, mate, you got to have your last 10 videos got to average 1,000 views per video. So I'm quite lucky in that I've actually got it, although, yeah, I would qualify it anyway. But it's pretty sad to me, a company like Tronsmart, who, you know, the reputation they have has been built on the back of smaller channels. You don't really get these speakers properly reviewed on larger channels. I think it's a sad day when management changes impact at the lower end the most honest reviewers. Now, on the table, as you've already seen, it's the tiny, no it's not, it's the massive Halo 200 that I didn't ask for, but they sent it to me anyway. At the same time, they sent me the Tronsmart Bang Max. It's karaoke speaker. Suddenly, we're getting a big rush of karaoke speakers as a add-on to, well, we just want a party speaker anyway. So I can only assume that's what's selling at the moment, karaoke speakers. Well, it's not really something that I was intending to get into. It's just that it just so happens they're adding these features, especially on the cheaper brands. But let's face it, even from JBL, we're getting karaoke speakers. As long as it doesn't impact the quality. It's just that sometimes it seems that the more features you get, the less quality there actually is. But we'll see. We already said great value, Tronsmart Bang Max. If you want a boombox that does genuinely, for this type of speaker, kick low, that offers a good value. It's just that it doesn't do much else, and there's a lack of upper bass. So your tracks will have to have deep bass for the Bang Max. Now, it is supposed to be the review. What's that? 20 minutes in, I haven't even mentioned the Halo 100. So, what's the big deal? It's 120. The headlines. It's a 120 watt speaker. You wait all your life for a bus, and then 3 come along. So I didn't have many 3-ways until the last few weeks, and suddenly everything from Tronsmart is a 3-way. What does that mean? Well, you've got drivers that separate 3 distinct frequency ranges. Well, in theory. So we already saw that they didn't roll off the mid drivers on the Bang Max, making the tweeter completely redundant. And it's even got only one tweeter here with 2 mid drivers and one woofer. So it's a completely different setup to the Bang Max. But we'll get onto that in a minute. Does it make sense? You'll notice there isn't even lights. It's like it's there for marketing. It's a 3-way and it's got 2 mid drivers, but then they've got 1 tweeter. Is it just about marketing? And you know, you should know it's not easy to do a decent 3-way. Many jokes, little time. But in the high end, but at this budget level, makes you wonder, should they even be attempting that? So 130 watts, 120 watts rated, both karaoke speakers. What you should note here is they've gone for a port. Always surprises me these days with these party speakers that they use a port, because obviously it's not going to be that waterproof. Whereas we do have passive radiators. Ports, passive radiators, kind of interchangeable. They do the same thing. And each has the pluses and minuses. But for a party speaker, that surprises me. They keep going with a port. So it's IPX4 for, you know, partly for that reason. I guess it could have been like an IPX6, but IPX4 protects from splashing water. They do 3 different versions, and you'll get a different number of mics. I suppose they do one without a mic. I can't remember exactly, but then I think they do one with 1 mic and then one with 2 mics. Guess what I've got? I've got 2 mics. So karaoke speaker comes with mics. You will need to insert batteries. It does use 2 AA batteries. In terms of stereo pairing, it can only be with the same model speaker, but you can do 100+ speakers. In terms of the battery life, they claim up to 18 hours for music at 50% volume. Karaoke up to 10 hours on 60% volume. It takes, they say, 3.5 hours to charge. It's got lights. What else has it got? So if you know your Tronsmart speakers, you will know. You'll get the TuneCon button for connecting 100+. There is an app, but you can do this all off the speaker itself and control the lights. Got your play, pause, volume up, volume down. You do have a hard knob for your volume control. You've got the M button for mode control. You've got your echo function. So that button there is for the TWS, and that button is their sound pulse EQ. Is that just marketing? We know it is from the Bang Max because it's basically the same tuning as default. It's just with mids recessed. But what they do is to fool you, it goes a couple of dB louder when you hit it. I hate this, but we're seeing this all the time. They think it's so clever. Or is it that the people, that are outsourcing it, but they're buying it in and they've got no idea how it's been tuned until they see my video. And so if they're watching it for the first time, you don't pay them for that. It's very easy just go like 2 decibels louder, isn't it? Anyone can do that. And on the back, we've got those special features. So we've got one input is for a mic or a guitar. One input is for mic only. But you can, so these are wireless, but you could use wired mics. But the wireless mics it comes with will automatically connect to this speaker. And we've got individual volume up, volume down, and it's a mains lead in. And that's, this is such a different fact. This looks more like the party karaoke speaker than the Tronsmart Bang Max. But I'll tell you why I'm surprised, because on the Bang Max, you do have the dual mics or guitar input with volume control, but you've also got gain control. Something else you've got is a TF card slot, along with the ability to play music off a USB dongle. But on this one, so you don't get the gain control, you don't get the TF card slot, but you can play off a USB dongle. Both have an auxiliary in. So that's a barrel charger, that's a mains lead, which I think is preferable to a barrel charger because you're more likely to have other devices that will use that. But the barrel charger tends to be, you'd only want to use it on that one because it's the right voltage, amps, etc. That's the overview. It's got an echo button. And what do we use an echo button for? It's for karaoke. We all love karaoke, we must love it because it obviously sells. The fact that all these speakers are now, even JBL, are giving the speakers with karaoke. I can't wait to a Harman Kardon speaker that does karaoke. It's one of the headline features. And then we know we're really living the life. So all I had to do was turn that on. I'll hold it for 2 seconds because now I'm live. It's not actually working. It's the other button. Oh, okay. All I did was, because in the manual it says you've got to pair it, but for me it automatically paired as soon as I turned it on. It tells me the frequency it's tuned to and the battery level, if you can see. 1, 2. So we'll step through the karaoke features on this speaker. Love me tender, love me true, never let me go. You have made my life complete, and I love you so. Love me tender. So it's got the karaoke features. It's got a lot of features, but not as much as the Bang Max. So it must have the best frequency response, I guess. Here's my frequency response measurements. Default EQ. Notice the upward rise means it's a bright speaker. Also a bit bass-like. Well, quite bass-like looking at that. Upward slant and very wavy at the high end. Big dip 5 kilohertz, 8 kilohertz, peak 7 kilohertz, 13 kilohertz. Looks very linear in the volume steps. And basically no bass adjustment looking at this from low volume to maximum volume. Sound pulse EQ, the in-house so-called EQ, but a quick look between the two. Looks like it's almost the same tuning, going a bit louder. Bass EQ, that's sound pulse EQ, but with the highs cut. And actually with the highs cut, it looks reasonably balanced, but for a bass mode, doesn't look very bass heavy at all. Sound pulse, default EQ overlaid. And as you can see, to all intents and purposes, it's the same EQ, but just goes louder. By the time you hit maximum volume, what you can see is it's slightly more V-shaped. So you've got slightly more bass, slightly more in the highs. So at the same volume, it would be a bit mid recessed. And bass EQ, as you can see, overlaid on sound pulse EQ. It is indeed sound pulse EQ, but from just below 2 kilohertz, it's a highs cut. Well, we say highs cut. Actually, sound pulse and a default EQ is a highs boosted mode. Quick look at the drivers. We can see the passive radiator tuned around 50 hertz, but looks a bit disjointed because the woofer is rolling off from 100 hertz, rolling off from 1 kilohertz, and then the mids drivers in red. And you can see, as we saw with the Bang Max, doesn't appear to be any roll off, despite being a 3-way speaker, making the tweeter in blue a bit pointless. So that doesn't look like party speaker tuning to me. It's a big old geezer, and it weighs about the same as the Bang Max, but you'll probably find it's fooling you into think it's heavier because of the sheer size of it. So again, we've got the problem we had with the Bang Max. Doesn't appear, they've got a 3-way apparently, and it doesn't look like they're rolling off. It's even worse on this one, not rolling off the mids drivers, completely making that, I mean, it does a little bit, that little tweeter at the top, but I think it's just making things worse overall. Now, it clearly has a bright tuning, and so I'm saying, and with that, it doesn't, as you can see, the frequency response does not suggest it's bass heavy in any way at all. So, for me, that's the sort of tuning I'd expect from a small speaker. You may think it's going to sound quite nice. So just know, I said passive radiator there. Of course, I meant the port. Seems to tunes around 50 hertz. And again, it's one of those examples where, for me, to me, that's too low because of where the woofer is dropping off, already falling off from 100 hertz. So it just seems that's a bit low for its tuning. Anyway, so it's got an app. We've been over it before. We'll have a look again. So we can go in, we do get firmware updates via the app. So you've got little controls there, and the main function you're going to want to see is the presets for the tuning. I have set a custom EQ here, as you can see, but we've got the default tuning, got sound pulse, deep bass, a classical. I'm not sure anyone listening to classical music would be buying this, and they got their rock EQ. So we've got the different modes. Why don't we have a listen to what they sound like? So the main ones that I'm going to be playing here is the deep bass mode, the default mode, and sound pulse mode, the so-called in-house tuning. They make a lot of bold claims for that, but is that marketing? We can have a look. And also, I've set a custom EQ, and I will let you hear the difference with that one.
Need to rush your wisdom in my mind. Memories of us when you used to find me so dangerous. You told me it's fine, I'm serious. We're gonna have time, so no need to rush. Wisdom in my mind. Memories of us when you used to find me so dangerous. You told me it's fine, I'm serious. We're gonna have time, so no need to rush. Your wisdom in my mind. Memories of us when you used to find me so dangerous. You told me it's fine, I'm serious. We're gonna have time, so no need to rush. Wisdom in my mind. Memories of us when you used to find me so dangerous. You told me it's fine, I'm serious. Need to rush. Your wisdom in my mind. Memories of us when you used to find me so dangerous. You told me it's fine, I'm serious. We're gonna have time, so no need to rush. Wisdom in my mind. Memories of us when you used to find me so dangerous. You told me it's fine, I'm serious. We're gonna have time, so no need to.
So if we overlay all those EQs, sound pulse minus 1.7 decibels, because it simply goes 1.7 decibels louder, so you'll think it's a bit more dynamic than it really is, but it's just slightly more V-shaped than default, slightly recessed mids. But what I want to show you is why to use custom, because even in bass mode, the difference in bass is huge between that and just pushing the bass on default mode in the EQ. And the benefit is you don't lose the highs. If you look at the green, how it's got the most muted highs of all, when you use the app to set your EQ, you still can keep hold of your highs, get the maximum out of that bass. We've got the trick. You hit the sound pulse button, it goes louder. You think, you know, depending on the volume, a couple of dB louder. You think to your ears, it sounds more dynamic. You know, yeah, that's quite good. Or some people I've heard say they don't like it, but it's basically the same tuning. It's just going louder. Basically the same, got slightly recessed mids, and it's slightly more V-shaped. So it's a tad more in the bass, a tad more in the highs. But for me, to all intents and purposes, if you had them perfectly leveled in terms of volume, they would sound basically the same. What was that? I don't know. Oh, it's me shopping coming a bit later. So again, to me, that's disappointing. I don't know if they paid someone in-house or not to tune sound pulse. But in my opinion, that's very lazy tuning. You should be asking for your money back if you thought that was actually a different tuning, Tronsmart. Default versus bass mode. Well, so bass mode is sound pulse mode, but with the highs reduced. So they're taking a bright speaker, reduce the highs. Why do they do that? Well, if you less highs, you'll perceive it to be more bass heavy. But look, it's a party speaker. This is not going to be for any type of serious listening. Let's be honest here. And then we go on to custom. And my custom mode, you can see there is a lot more mid bass. There's no deep bass on this, but there's a lot more mid bass to have. You got a bass mode. I don't know why they haven't used the full headroom there is. So I'm going to break one of my rules here. Even on this early testing, I'm going to be using it in custom mode because, quite honestly, I think the stock tuning is silly. It doesn't make any sense, and they look like lazy tunings to me. As I said, I don't know if Tronsmart themselves are paying someone to do that, and they don't understand what was happening, and they're paying, or they've got that in the house. But do Tronsmart know sound pulse mode is simply a slightly more V-shaped default mode? But it goes a couple of dB louder, making it sound quite different. And do they know that bass mode is sound pulse mode, and they just reduce the highs? There's no clever shaping going on, no clever shaping of the bass and all that, where you could reduce some of the deeper bass, the upper bass to get a bit more deep bass, or the other way around, depending on what they're going for. So we're going to get straight into the comparisons then, which is that's 60%. These are party speakers. I'm not gonna buy them for not when it's that big. And there is a speaker that looks quite like that. And do you know what it is? It's the Encore. It's got 2 tweeters. It's got a woofer. In actual height terms, it's actually smaller than the Halo 200. It actually weighs a bit more. It's 6.3 kilos, 5.8 kilos, 5.7 kilos for the Bang Max. All about the same. You'd expect then to kind of sound the same. So I'm going to compare the Halo 200 against the Bang Max, because I think if you're looking at Tronsmart speakers, they're the two latest that I know about. You're going to be thinking which one, and against these two, because it looks like the Encore. People are expecting something Encore-like. There's a reason why each mode, I've used specific modes. I've put these into the modes that I think people who will buy these speakers will want to listen to them in. Deep bass, so you could cut a lot of that bass, or you could go for punchy upper bass, and it will go louder, or you could just have it in default with, very smooth bass. I think you buy this for its deep bass kick that's in deep bass mode. Sound pulse mode, because it's basically default, but it goes a bit louder, it's a bit more V-shaped. I think that's what you'll listen to, because deep bass mode, again, just takes away too many of the highs. Lazy tuning, they've just cut the highs from the sound pulse mode. And custom mode, because for me, the EQ is just ridiculous, and so I think you'll go straight to custom to try and get anything out of that spec. You're going to want a poppy sort of sound, and that's what I tried to get. My comparisons.
Let's take our time and let's get wild. Can finally breathe and sing along with me. Oh, brother, passing through the fire, understood you're strong inside, and now I really care. Oh, lover, we still love each other. Come on, let's leave the stage behind and let's try again.
So the Partybox Encore has by far the deepest bass, but mids and upper bass a little bit recessed compared to the other two. The Bang Max not far behind the Encore, and even with custom EQ set to maximum for the bass in the Halo 200, just in sound pulse mode, the Bang Max is massively more bass heavy. But I have to say, if it wasn't a party speaker, you could say it's a kind of a balance bass. It is, because the other two have very boosted bass, but these are party speakers. But if you didn't want a boombox, the Halo has quite muted bass, but there is bass there.
For me, that's a big disappointment compared to other Bang Max. They gave the game one. They said this is the max, so that's the maxiest you get in terms of bass. This does produce deep bass. That's its main. I call it one-trick pony. That's what it does. And if you're playing tracks without deep bass, it won't sound good at all, to be honest, because the Halo 200 is more consistent in the highs. They're a bit smooth. Neither of them are smooth. They're both very wavy, but that's more consistent, quite a little bit less wavy, because that basically relies on one peak in the highs. So it's a more relaxed, easier sound, the Halo 200, but this is a party speaker. To me, that makes no sense. I can't say it sounds awful, but it sounds nothing like I would expect it to sound like. If I'm buying a speaker this big, it's a karaoke speaker. The form factor is a party speaker. It's got to have some deep bass. The fact that they got so much deep bass from the Bang Max, so little from the Halo 200, well, to me, I mean, I find that astonishing, to be honest. And then we've got the Halo 200 against the Encore. I mean, in terms of bass, it's different planet. It goes the deepest of all the speakers here. And that's what you're going to buy it for. That's what it delivers. But you know what? It's more expensive. I don't know what you're paying for it. I heard people talk about paying $400, I think. When I was checking prices on that, it was 300 quid, and you could actually get it for $239. Don't confuse this with the Encore Essential. This is the JBL Encore. But if it's $400, I mean, that's crazy. You might as well get the Boombox 3. But it does deliver Boombox 3 like deep bass. It may sound dull compared to the Halo 200. Do you know why? Because that's a bright speaker. It has an upward slant. It does sound clearer, but this is actually more balanced. This is more in line. I'm not saying this is transparent in any way, but the tuning on this is more in line with the original track. It's just that when you're A-Bing and you don't know what that track should sound like, the first thing that will hit you is, oh, that sounds clearer. Oh, that's nice. These tweeters are crap or something. No. This is actually more in line with it's truer to the original track. Still party speaker, Glue's Partybox Encore. And it delivers a massive deep bass, completely missing on the Halo 200. Maximum volume, you're having a party, and that's what it's all about. 100% volume on battery.
Maximum volume in the modes I think people will be using them in, and the Tronsmart Bang Max is the loudest, a long way louder than the Partybox in its deep bass mode, 3 decibels in LUFS, 4 decibels in peak, but the Partybox does hold on to the most in terms of deep bass, 70 hertz and below. And I did give clips of both the Halo 200 in sound pulse mode and in its custom mode, just to show you how much more headroom there is using the custom mode, especially in that bass. Why they haven't used more of that bass in the presets, I don't know. And you get a lot less bass in sound pulse mode, which otherwise would be the loudest mode. But you get this huge 3 kilohertz peak and then completely rolling off. So it sounds horrendous to all intents and purposes. The winner for mid bass would be the Tronsmart Bang Max. But note the modes that each of these speakers have been played in.
So, gave you both sound pulse mode, which is their loudest mode for the Halo 200, and my custom EQ, just to show you, in my opinion, how silly the default tuning. Now, I'm going to have to say at this point, for me, on this speaker, using my Samsung S10 Plus, yes, going to update it at some point, there's a bug where it seems to think it's at 100% even when your phone's at, say, 60% volume. And why do I say that? It's because you can hear, you get that lack of bass that obviously where it thinks it needs to, well, there's no bass adjustment going on. So I was gonna say where it's limiting, but it may just be that the dynamic part where it will increase bass at low volume isn't cutting it. So it sounds thin, bass light, even though I'm at lower volumes. And just by switching EQ modes in the app, it brings back the bass. The problem is, I don't know when I'm doing these testing when that's kicked in or not. I mean, when I'm just playing music through it, it's quite obvious, but that's because I keep flicking through tracks and I can hear the difference. I don't know if that's something's happened when I'm playing the default tuning, the sound pulse tuning, which is the louder tuning on there. But that's what I got, and it's not like it's my phone because I've never had that on any other speaker. Just to say, you could hear at low volumes it's bass light, but I'd only know that because I've previously played it. And then I just have to switch something in the app. I would go changing modes, and then it seems to flip back to where it was. So I guess it's something to do with having set custom mode. It's confusing it in some way. Just know that. But however, with that proviso, and I don't know if there's something else going on, the headroom by using custom is so much louder. There's so much more there than the sound pulse mode. Their stock tuning, to me, makes zero sense, especially for a speaker like that, which is a party speaker. It should have some sort of pop tuning, and it should have more punch to the bass. But sound pulse mode, in terms of peaks and laughs, actually, technically goes loudest because it's relying on a single horrible peak. But in terms of to your ears and how loud you'd want it to go, custom mode, you know, it shows where the headroom is. It could have been so much nicer at maximum volume. And they could have tuned deep bass with a bit more punch. But, you know, they did exactly the same on the Bang Max. Both of these speakers, deep bass mode is simply sound pulse mode, which again is just default mode, slightly more V-shaped. And the deep bass is that again, just with a highs cut. It's the laziest of tunings. There's no way that works for both speakers in terms of their headroom and to get the best out of those speakers. It seems to me either they're paying someone who's literally, you know, he gets one fee, so you might as well do it as quickly as possible, and nobody seems to have an ear for music at Tronsmart, so he does a 10-minute, goes through what is already his standard process, not taking the time to listen to the speaker, what those drivers are capable of, and getting the best out of it. So I have to say, for me, very, very lazy tuning. Makes no sense. That's got deep bass. At least you can get some fun with that. But to me, this makes no sense for a speaker this big that's clearly party oriented, something, well, you know what I mean, focused. That otherwise, I would say this is a balanced sound. It probably suit people who don't like deep bass music, but they're not going to buy a speaker that big. So that's what I said, you know, quite balanced, but slightly bright. Works in smaller speakers. Makes no sense. Again, the Encore sounding a bit dull, but it's the most in line with the original track, and it holds on to deep. Remember, the more deep bass you hold on to, the more it taxes the amp, and that's the less you can drive the mids and the highs. So they can go really loud but sound awful, as in sound pulse mode there, or you can get some nice deep bass, but you're not really going to go quite as loud. And as I said, the highs on this are quite balanced. But there's a reason why people prefer V-shape, because they don't always want a balanced size. It is a party speaker. But to me it works because I prefer a bit more balance, but with a nice deep bass. AKA warm sounding. So if you like your 3 kilohertz, I mean, that's classic region for where your ear is really, really sensitive. And do you know what they decided to do? As I said, I don't know if it was to do with the bug or not, but it's boosted by 12 decibels. I mean, that's basically all you're hearing is a 12 decibel peak. And that, you know, I know it could be worse up in the sibilants, but for me, you know, 8 kilohertz, 3 kilohertz, these are the places you do not want to be doing that. It makes no sense, does it? But we've got 3 speakers on the table, and you know what I got? I got a sheet telling me all about the specs. So, as I said, the prices for, I think, for all of them are all over the place. Well, when I check the prices, I can get 300 quid or $239. You know, $239 is great value. 300 quid, well, you're only going to say it's value if the alternative, of course, is like a £500 Boombox 3. £300, well, it's going to be about the battery. I'll get onto that in a minute. So their street price is £200, $200, but I'm hearing all the time you're getting this for about $170, 170 quid if at the moment you can get hold of it. I think that's good value. It's not good value because it's the greatest sound ever. But as a real alternative for people who can't afford the Boombox 3 or 2 or even the 1, you get that deep bass that you will get from the Boombox 3, but you won't get the highs. You won't get the quality you'll get from the JBL. But I think the people buying that couldn't care less about that anyway. And then 170 quid, well, about the same price level, 170 quid, 170 quid, $230. But to me, I don't know. I think that sounds more fun. I think the stereo sounds quite wide. That sounds surprisingly narrow to me. There isn't a single reason other than you want a balanced sound and a massively sized speaker. I can't think of a single reason why you would buy that over the Bang Max. That's just lots more fun. And if you're going to configure custom, you got a better starting point because the deep bass is already there. But that's why I've used the EQ I have in each of them. Multi-point functionality. Well, it's like the JBL Encore has straight. Yes, you can switch between at least 2 devices. I only tested it with 2 devices. But both the Tronsmarts, you have to pause on one device. So yes, you can connect to 2 devices, but if you want to start playing on the second device, you can't just straight play on the second device. You'll have to pause the music first on the first device. It's slightly awkward, but hey, it does have multi-point functionality, but it's not straight, as in play off either device without messing about. But here's the kicker. You knew it was coming. 27 watt hours. What did you say? 27 watt hours for a deep bass party speaker. That is crazy. We know why they do it. It's so you will still buy the Boombox 3. But hey, you could buy this if you want and you'd save a couple of quid. Just know that's a small battery. 27 watt hours it's bigger, by the way, than, I think a lot bigger than the Essential, but that's what they're doing. It sounds good, but not for long. 27 watt hours, you just about get away with it. But that's a very small battery. 66.6 watt hours for the Bang Max. 55. It's still a smaller battery than that one. 55.5 watt hours on the Halo 200. Only the Encore. So SBC, but the Encore does have AAC. On your Apple devices, you can go AAC. There's Bluetooth 5.1. The other 2 are Bluetooth 5.3. All do true wireless stereo pairing. But this one does not do the 100 plus. Has it ever been done? 100 plus speakers, you can only do stereo pairing, but you can do 100 plus if you wanted to on the Tronsmart speakers. We've got a mains lead on both the Encore and the Halo 200, whereas it's a barrel charger on the Bang Max. Personally, I think mains lead is, you'd rather have that than the barrel charger, but of course you really like the USB-C. All 3 have auxiliary inputs. So they can all be used as a power bank. None of them are great, but at least the Tronsmart's are 5 volts 1 amp, which you think that would be the minimum. But the Encore, 5 volts 0.1, you'd be there for 3 years. Almost unusable. 5 volts, half an amp to charge. None of them can be used to make phone calls. So in terms of playing off a USB dongle, they can all do that. Even the Encore can do that. The Bang Max, you can have a TF card slot or a USB dongle, and it's only a USB dongle on the Halo 200. They all have lights, but the lights are only on the side of the... Is it on? No, it's not. It's only on the side of the Bang Max. we should see that come on. But I mean, we've got lights on the front, but not on the tweeter, saving wherever they can. So in terms of what's to me one of the most, along with battery life, unless they quote exactly how they're measuring it, one of the most pointless specs. But anyway, I know you like them. 100 watts Encore, 130 watts Bang Max, 120 watts for the Halo 200, 6.3 kilos Encore, 5.75 kilos for the Bang Max, and 5.85 kilos for the Halo 200. So all the same ballpark, but Encore is the heaviest. And along with the, I don't know why in this form factor, but anyway, both the Encore and the Halo 200 have ports. We've got a big port there. Get your hand right in. Just means you can't get submerged. So they're both IPX4, whereas it's IPX6, means it, direct high pressure water safe, but not for that one. But I guess because it will go down the back of it. So on the Encore, we've got a single 133mm woofer and two 45.5mm tweeters. The Bang Max has two 95mm woofers, two 60mm tweeters, two 260mm mid drivers, two 25mm tweeters, two passive radiators, so port, and a single 110mm woofer compared to the 133mm on the Encore, two 60mm mid drivers, and a 25mm tweeter at the top, which seems completely redundant. In terms of that auxiliary input, all three 16 milliseconds. That's the narrowest I can measure it. So that's without going, obviously we want naught, but 16 milliseconds is the next best. So still pretty good. But if it's absolutely crucial to have zero lag, there is slight lag. And both the Bang Max and the Encore, 160 milliseconds for Bluetooth streaming YouTube. That makes it unusable for me. My cutoff point is 80 milliseconds. Even the Encore is 100 milliseconds. It surprises me how many people still want to use these speakers for movies. I mean, get a soundbar. These speakers are not really, especially with that sort of lag. In terms of the app, got a 3-band equalizer there. You've got a 5-band equalizer for the Tronsmart, and so probably you're going to be saying, well, you EQ'd that one. I would explain. I think it's going to be in the modes that you're most likely to use. But you can, I've gone it a million times why I don't use the app. But if you're going to play at one volume, yeah, you can mess around with the 3-band algorithm-driven sliders on the JBL. And there you have it. The Halo 200 for me is a no-go for reasons I have already explained. But I know people are saying nice things about it. As I said, there's never been a speaker. Somebody didn't say something nice about it. But they're saying nice things because overall it's a balanced sound, but it lacks deep bass. But I don't see why you'd buy a speaker like that for a balanced sound. And it's not audiophile quality balance. It's just more balanced compared to what you're used to from these type of speakers. It reminds me of the W King T9, the first generation, completely different to the tunings of the other speakers. And I really liked it. But it wasn't, it would have been better in a different form factor. The difference there is you put it on its side and you've got stereo left and right separation, sort of, the drivers close together. On this, I just don't see it. I just don't understand other than it's more karaoke friendly. But lack of deep bass, not very party sounding. But $170 or something. I can see people buying it as a present because it looks like it'd be a really meaty speaker. So I can see people getting these over Christmas as a present from their dad and take it to school, and then people say they're laughing and there's no deep bass. I'm not saying this is a laughable speaker. It's got a balanced sound. It's just that, for me, it makes no sense, especially when you can get the Tronsmart Bang Max. You're going to buy this for deep bass, surely. I could be absolutely wrong. Just giving you my opinion. Does it sound awful? No, it sounds quite balanced, but I'm not going to carry around a speaker that big to get a balanced sound. That's all I'm saying. So, that's been my wrap-up. Well, that's been my video. And I hope you got something out of it. I don't know. As I said, I never asked for these speakers. I definitely know Soundcore ain't going to be sending me any speakers. And do you know what? I couldn't care less. I'd rather deal with companies who genuinely care about about their customers, quite honestly. Anyway, we've been through that. So yeah, for me, the winner here is the Tronsmart in terms of it delivers what you'd expect it to deliver. Obviously, I mean, that's still quite expensive then if it's around the $400, £400 mark. But it's the one I would most like to listen to because it's the most balanced. But it's got the one peak high on the Bang Max, which may well work for you. Not everyone. Look, it doesn't always. If you're playing these outdoors and all that, there's no, having a balance high is not. It's probably not preferable. You'd probably want something a bit more V-shaped, more in the high end. A lot of people call that neutral anyway. Okay, enough rambling. I have no idea how long this video's been. I know it feels like hours. I think I've actually been sitting here for an hour. So, yep. Animus strikes again. Thank you for watching. If indeed you've watched, well, of course you're watching this bit anyway. And I hope you continue to watch me and follow me. And I'll see you again.
What the was that?
You boom.
It comes from China.
My speaker's got deep bass, balanced mids, and a bright high.
Yes, mine sounds exactly the same.